Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Fairhope Board and Adjustment meeting in order. Our first order of business before we approve the minutes is to allow Ryan Baker to move into Mike Ball's spot as a permanent Board of Adjustment member. He was an alternate that will be moving up.
And that we will part votes.
Okay. And so we'll have a motion to accept that proposal.
Mr. Chairman, I move that Ryan Baker sit up here now as a full-time member, and we're happy to have him.
Okay. We will take a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Yeah. Did we get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I'm sorry. So we'll take a roll call vote again.
Okay. Aye.
Aye.
Come on up here.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Our first, so we have an approval of the minutes for July 18th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from July 18, 2022.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I abstain because I was not here.
I abstain also.
Okay. And I'm sorry I forgot to do this earlier, but I'll introduce our board to the members that are out in the audience that may or may not know who we are. So,
Well, I'm Ryan Baker.
Donna Cook.
Anil Vera,
Kathy Slagle.
Frank Lamia.
thank you. So our first order of business is BOA 22.08. It's a public hearing to consider the request of the applicant, Steve Cumby, with Lanier Construction, acting on behalf of St. Lawrence Catholic Church for a special exception to allow the construction of a columbarium for the property zoned R2.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
So you kind of summed that up. It is zoned R2, which is medium density single residential district. It'll be at 370 South Section Street, if you guys aren't familiar. That's what the whole compound looks like. Oops, sorry. And then I had to look up what a columbarium is. I don't know if you guys had to do that, but it's a vault or other structure with recesses in the walls to receive the ashes of the dead. So it's most closely identified with a cemetery, which the Fairhope zoning ordinance is land used or intended to be used for the burial of the animal or human dead and dedicated for cemetery purposes, including crematories, mausoleums, and mortuaries. So, and then this is a special exception, which is required in the R2 zoning classification to authorize a cemetery as an allowable use, and we'll get to the table of why that is. There's drawings, but to sum it up, there'll be wall structures that are approximately 7 feet tall around, and each one will have 36 urns in them. So that's where it will be, the highlighted yellow. They're going to do some demolition and some extra landscaping. That's kind of what that looks like. There it is from the side and what it'll look like all together. And there's your use table. You can see cemeteries down there underneath Civic. And then it's got the hollow dots. It's permitted only on appeal and subject to special conditions. So that's what we're doing. And we recommend this. And some of them are here to talk about it if you would like. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay. At this time, is the applicant here to make a presentation for us?
Yes.
And if you'll state your name for the recording, please.
Steve Cummings.
Oh, if you'll come up to the front.
Steve Cumby,
Okay.
Lanier Construction.
Okay. So did you need to add anything, or?
No, sir, it's a very nice setup. It's stone and marble and concrete, and it's going to be in the rear of the church, as you see the area on the back side. And it's going, you know, it's not a opposing or big structure. Like I said, it's only 7 foot tall, and there's going to be 4 of them, and they'll be in a little semicircle in the back. So they're.
Does it impact drainage in any way?
No, sir. This area is probably 15 to 17 feet deep and about 30 feet wide. And it's an existing area that they've got statues there now. All we're going to do is just put a little, dig some footings and put the concrete and pour a sidewalk. We're just going to clear the organics off and bring in some more topsoil, because there's going to be grass around it, and we'll do the little sidewalks and the footings for the columbarium. And they're approximately 8 feet by 3 feet wide, the footings. And they'll be poured in the ground, and columbariums will sit on them, and then we'll have some sidewalk. It won't impact the drainage whatsoever on that area.
One of the neighbors did ask, where is it located in relationship to Ann Street and the church?
You really can't see it from Main Street.
Okay.
Because I did a drive-by. Steve might tell you more, but.
This is probably well, let's go back to the so, is it here, in that area?
Oh, let me look at that.
The gym will be in the way from Main Street.
Yeah, you won't see it.
Because I used to live on Main Street, you won't be able to see it at all.
Show them on there.
It's
where
on the
it's
bottom
at.
of that white square.
I can't make out.
Hunter. It's the bottom left-hand side of the white.
Right, so this is our youth center, and this is the gym, and it's back
Right,
tucked
that's where I
behind here,
thought.
So it'll be behind the gym.
Behind the gym. Okay.
Yeah, you won't
The
see
church
it.
isn't even included in that. The church sanctuary is the next building down.
Gotcha. So that was just a partial drawing there,
Yeah.
so it's definitely what
And once the landscaping is done, after it's installed, the landscaping behind it, you actually will only be able to see it from our parking lot.
That's-
Like, you won't be able to see it from Section, certainly won't be able to see it from Boone, and you won't be able to see it unless you come into our parking lot.
And we would look at drainage, and, you know, a lot of times at this point, we won't get to that level of question. You know,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
St. James and.
Fairhope United Methodist.
Yes, all those that, and work it up with it.
So there were only 3 people that wrote to us from the neighbors, is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Right, okay.
And I only saw the 2, and I answered 2 of them.
Okay.
They seem to be content.
Okay.
Yeah, there's enough vegetation around the backside where it's going to go now. This is going to have good drainage, no water, so we won't create any more runoff. You know, approximately about 4 by 20, we're going to create about 80 square feet of concrete total, and that's minimal amount of concrete that we'll have to run off. But we're going to have lots of grass around it, the concrete, to absorb the water and stuff, so we won't create any more runoff than what's existing there now. And it's got good drainage there. There's lots of organics around the backside of the church. The water is absorbing into it with that minimal amount of it. So
All right, thank you.
I don't see any reason it should cause any problems like that whatsoever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This time, we'll open the public portion of the meeting. Is there anybody from the public that would like to, if you'll come up and state your name for us?
Yes, my name is Ralph Anderson. My wife Chandra and I have been at 105 Kirkland Lane for 21 years. We've put tens of thousands of dollars in our property to control all this drainage that's coming down on us from Ann Street, 2nd Street, and Boone Lane. So we can't take anything else hard surface. It's going to drain into that organics because I've been back there before when we get these floods, and it pours through that privacy fence down into those backyards, down to my house. Goes up to a big lake, all the way up to the edge of my garage. Water out of my driveway is up to my knee in those heavy rains. So if what you just said is the drainage is going to the organics, we needed to go somewhere else besides into those organic backyards.
Did he give us his address? Where is he living?
Yeah, would you give us your address where you're living at?
105 Kirkman Lane.
This is quite a ways from the site. I mean, it looks like it's quite a ways.
If you would go to the site and see, we're in the ravine. Everything from Boone drops down, section drops down, and drops down. We're at the bottom. And again, we've had multiple people out there and spent thousands of dollars building a holding pond for all practical purposes in our own backyard. And people continue to dump on us. We can't take it anymore. And we've heard before, and I'm not saying it wasn't intended that way, that, hey, what we're doing is not going to hurt you. But in fact, it hurts us a lot based on what we just had done with the neighbors behind us. Seems like everybody behind us wants to re-landscape the yard and make it so nothing stands on their yard and comes straight down to us. Previously, before all that, it wasn't. Everybody kind of held a little bit of water until it came down our way. But like I say, we can't take any more water coming off that parking lot down into those yards.
Has the city done anything to help with that drainage? I'm familiar with that, but I had a listing up on Boone, so I'm
No, I
familiar
mean, we
with the water,
had-
and I've seen your house after some of those big rains.
Right. We've had Mayor Ken out. We've had Jack Burrell out. We've had Kevin Boone out. And Sherry Sullivan's been out. So Jack Burrell, very helpful, but nothing got done because whatever. Same thing with the mayor. She sees there's an issue. She responded back to my email, we know there's an issue and, we're going to try to take care of it. But again, that's whenever there's other priorities and we understand that. But no, to answer your question simply, no. And that just ends up being a problem. But again, everything that comes down comes to us. We're the last one. And the drain on the street, that's, the city property drain, isn't big enough to hold it. So that's our issue. So when we say that it's going into organic space or whatever that is, that's backyards and it's just flowing straight down to us. So it's not absorbing it in a heavy rain.
I'm very familiar with that. I live around the corner from there, so I know exactly where you are. And I know how all of those properties on Boone slope towards St. Lawrence, and St. Lawrence's property kind of has a fence and a retaining wall sort of condition there. From our, I guess I'm going to ask Hunter, from our standpoint, we're doing a special exception for allowable to be able to do this. Do we have to put anything in there contingent on the city reviewing drainage? Because y'all going to review it anyways, correct? I mean, this is a small area, and I'm really familiar with the church piece too. I've been behind the church there hundreds of times. There's a little small koi pond and statues and a fence already there. So it's been minorly developed, and I say, in that same exact spot. I don't know how much more this will cause runoff. Like what Steve was saying, if it's 40 square feet, it's such a minimal amount, but I don't know how it slopes or the changing of the grading. That's all y'all's job to make those determinations. If you can push the water back towards the parking lot instead of towards the gully side, because it's right there in the corner, just stay on their parking lot. I don't really know.
And I mean, this one's kind of a challenge when we're talking about, what we look at is adjacent properties and how drainage is affecting that. For something the gullies naturally drain
Right.
Fairhope, and water naturally tends to go that way. If you're in a watershed here, it's hard to, even if you push it into the parking lot, does it ultimately just go straight into the same area?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that, but we're going to look at the regulations and how they apply to this site and how it's affecting adjacent properties. There's nothing in our regulations to something at this extent that would require detention ponds and things like that. Those are subdivision regulations. This is not something that we would have the authority to be able to what we trigger adverse effects.
Mhm.
You know, this is a building permit. So at 80 square feet of concrete, it's not to that point. And I don't know if that 80 square feet, like you said, if there's other hard surfaces there, impervious surface, you know, how do you balance those out? So, yes, we will look at drainage, but fixing, you know, drainage problems in an area that wide is not something we're going to make somebody doing this scale.
No.
So, how do we?
I just didn't know if we needed to add anything to our motion in any way associated with that.
You can certainly have staff when we see a grading plan in what I'd recommend is maybe seeing a grading plan with a permit.
Mhm.
That will help us to figure out where that's channeled. So before they start construction, we can see where water is going.
Would an engineer be required for this size project, you think, to get a permit?
They will have a permit.
Yeah.
But typically, you're not doing a whole lot of engineering for this.
Well, grading, you mentioned the grading plan. I mean, that's
Yeah.
typically done by an engineer.
And I mean, for something like this, there's nothing structural that would require a civil typically. So
Right.
Your contractor can show how they're going to grade out. It might be a good idea to see if the church already has that. They might have already have an engineer, so that might be a question they can never answer. And if they have it in place, it's no problem, but certainly something we can apply. And that's where the special condition comes in,
Yeah.
that you could apply that.
I mean, I don't, my opinion is I don't really think that this particular project would have that much adverse effect. But it would make a huge difference. I've walked back there. I think it would beautify the back of that space, see up on that plaza and Memorial Garden. It'd be a beautiful thing for the church. But like I said, I'm not an engineer. I know there's civil engineers probably there in here that could answer that question, but it's such a small area. It seems like it'd be hard to fix your drainage problem based off of this one.
Well,
little
I
area.
understand, and you're saying it's
Yeah.
a natural drainage area, ravine, whatever, but we're talking about putting unnatural stuff on a natural area, which is what causes the problem. We put more hard surface down. In another thing, in the, way back when, I think there was gonna be a retention pond, but they ended up doing it underground. I don't know all the details of it.
Yeah.
But the first drain that's supposed to capture water off Ann Street, my neighbor videoed it, and the water goes around the drain. Doesn't even go into what's built there to collect it.
Mhm.
So when I read in here that the owner has to make sure those drains are doing what they're supposed to do, that's not from a previous thing done way back when. And every little bit of that adds up.
Sure.
To make it a really big problem if you're at the bottom of the hill. Every little thing that you think's not that big makes a big deal.
I understand.
You know, I think, and this would certainly be something to ask the church, but the sidewalk, if that was impervious pavers, that instead of concrete.
Mhm.
We're not talking about a big area, but that would allow the water.
So are we creating more impervious area, or is it, I mean, you could, I mean, that's a thought. I mean, in terms of, you could say, you
The
know,
trade-off of what's there now.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Versus what's coming in, I don't know how that balances out.
It's such a small area. Now, I know everything counts, but it's really a small area. We're not creating more runoff because of the water. So what we could do with that little bit of sidewalk, 80 square feet, we could use pavers and put, separation in them, let the absorption through there, we could do that.
okay.
I mean, but it is really
Yeah,
so minor. Engineers would look at it like, this has no, they couldn't tell you that small, and I don't mean to discount your problems. It is very small, what we're doing
I
here.
understand, but what I think I understood you say is that water's gonna be directed to the natural area. It's not gonna be directed back to the
No,
drain.
it's just gonna be level, it'll absorb the same area that was there, so it's enough groundwork there. We're gonna put grass and stuff that will just absorb into the grass.
Have any of y'all been down there after a storm to see what this thing does?
I
Just
have-
like last week, how high that water was back in the back of that parking lot overlooking ours? We can't handle any more water. I can't put it any more simply than that. So again, if that water is directed back to us, or it's gonna flow back to us, it's a problem.
Yeah, and we will not be changing direction of flow.
I understand it.
We won't be changing anything to, all of it's going to absorb right there on the property as it is now. I mean, we just the 80 feet of concrete, like I said, if we're gonna put that, it has, we can use pervious stone pads there.
The runoff coefficient here is not, this is really not something that is, we're very small. And I'm not debating whether there's water problems there today or not, but this does not change that. Removing it, and again, this is about the use. So if you have concerns about that and want to direct us to look at anything, we can certainly do that.
Understand. But we've heard the same story repeatedly. This isn't going to cause a problem, and then it does, and then it's too late. That's all I'm saying. So, and I know you said it's not about drainage, but it is causing us a problem.
What our neighbors behind us, they're everything's washing away to get, that water comes through like a river.
Right.
So is St. Lawrence saying that they are going to use impervious pavers, or will those be concrete pavers?
We can use impervious pavers. I talked with the church, and they're fine with that. Impervious.
That would allow
Some absorption.
And that's the only hard surface you got then will be the impervious pavers,
Yes.
or pervious pavers, I'm sorry.
the actual,
Sidewalk, we'll take the sidewalk, and use pavers instead of sidewalk.
and where the actual urns are placed would have to be, that's going to be absorbing that footprint. But that footprint is, what, 3 foot by
3 by 8?
2 by 8?
Yes.
So I mean, you got 4 2 by 8 foot surfaces
Right. That'll have to be concrete.
Is there any erosion at the back of that property of the church now?
They're looking at it. I mean, it's
We
eroded enough.
can't get to that because we can't get in those backyards. But I can tell you what's in the back of ours, and it's digging a big old hole. So, but we can't get to the back of those other properties to see.
Running down the hill that's out behind
Right.
the property. And if it goes into the parking lot, we will get that water as well, and we will spend $6,000 on retaining walls of the church.
Anyway, that's all I've got. Like I say, we've heard the story a lot of times. I'm not saying anything that you don't mean it. It just doesn't work out that way. It's been our
We're not
experience.
opposed to the church.
At all?
They have that at all. It's just, I would love for them to look at that. But it's just at this cost, and they haven't corrected the pipes.
She has to come to the microphone.
Separate issue, though. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against in the public? Okay, we'll close the public portion. Is there any board member discussion and motion?
I mean, I would think that I would be in favor of it if they'll agree to do everything that's not a footing, basically, under the structure to be pervious paving. It's probably going to be an improvement. Over what they've got now, I would think, because there is paving back there. So that's a thought. I would be in favor of that.
So is that your motion?
Yes, my motion.
Okay.
A second.
Okay. All in favor, we'll take a roll call vote.
Wait, did
Oh,
we
excuse me.
second it?
Yeah, Ryan. say
Can you repeat that?
Yeah.
All the paving area, except for the foundation under the actual structures, the boxes, would be
Pervious.
pervious, yes. Does that
Like the
make sense?
sidewalk around it.
So you're
will be.
approving the proposed special exception?
Yes,
I would,
with that,
I don't know, but what I'm thinking is, can they correct part of the problem that's there with this? And if they can take 80 feet of water that's already being shed on that property and shed it a different way to try to correct some of what is going off the back. I don't know how to,
I am ill-prepared to answer that question, because what you have in this drainage shed is much larger than, if they got it to another side of the properties, it's still going in the same place by the time it gets down to the curb. I don't have a clue if that can even be done within this property.
What you said is what makes sense.
The hard part about that is I'm thinking out loud, is where you take it from. Are you taking it from a driveway? Are you taking out a parking space that they need, that they might be required to have that quantity by code? Or, I mean, it just kind of could steamroll into more and more. I think the idea of everything being, there's already stuff there in this location that's impervious. I think there's a little sidewalk in that zone. That the koi pond is an impervious zone. You know, when it rains hard, that overflows and goes out because it's lined. So it's kind of like you're trading out spaces. I don't know if it's, I don't know what the quantity of area that's impervious there that they're going to get rid of. I mean, I guess somebody can calculate all that. But what I suggested is the easiest methodology of what we can do. Otherwise, you'd ask them to redesign their entire site, which is a huge property for 80 square feet somewhere.
And I will just remind, and I know it's good to be sympathetic to any concern. This is about the use of those things. There are procedures in place that will look at other issues. I don't know what there may be other mitigation happening in bureaucracy. We don't move fast, but I know we have many grants out there. We just did one on Church Street in there. Just restoring that bank and bully. So this is about the use. Remind me of that. Getting into big engineering projects, I think, is beyond the scope of this review.
So there's a motion,
So
and I
there's a-
seconded it.
Okay. And then we will take a roll call vote.
Aye.
I'm not for
So no?
it. No.
No.
Not without drainage.
No. Yes, or,
Aye.
Aye.
okay, motion carries 4-1. Okay, thank you. Our second order of business is BOA 22.09. It's a public hearing to consider the request of the owner, FST Section Street Hospitality Group LLC, for a special exception to allow hotel use for the property zone B2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to make sure we're on the same page, we can all walk outside and see this site right across the street. The vacant lot on the corner there, for many years was a dental office, was demolished a few months ago, and that is the site in question. It is Zone B2 and does lie within our central business district. Start with the graphic there of what we're showing. Hotel use in our zoning ordinance and then within B2 and the CBD is not allowed by right. It, just like the columbarium, requires approval through the Board of Adjustment and is subject to special conditions. So that is why we're in front of you here today. Kind of give you a little bit of what the existing site looks like. And now the property, the photo on the bottom was a few years old, but the other ones were taken in the last couple of months. So you can see there's a little bit of topography on that site. And I'm not going to get into a lot of this. Is the applicant's kind of narrative on how they're operating, but in general, we'll be a hotel owned and operated, boutique hotel with kind of event space. It is not an Airbnb concept. It's full service a hotel, and the applicant is here to speak to that specifically. So I'm going to let him describe a little bit more about the operations, if you have any questions. But just kind of give you some site plans and west elevations. We started looking at this months ago and looked at height and everything, and I got to applaud a lot of the processes that have amended this plan. You're seeing some of the elevations from all sides. As you all know, we do not have requirements for commercial property. It does not have to provide parking in the CBD. The only requirement in the CBD is one parking space for residential unit. And regardless if that's a 10-bedroom unit or a 1-bedroom unit. Now, we do look at any hotels within the CBD, anything that requires special exemptions, and evaluate those. I think you can see within the staff report, we look at the site and what's around there, what kind of parking is around. I think Fairhope has been very forward-thinking, even though it draws the ire of some, but very forward-thinking from a planning perspective, where we're not designing for cars. Our central business district is intended to be pedestrian-friendly, and we're not providing parking spaces everywhere. Now, at the same time, we have to be conscientious of, we also don't want to kill the vitality of downtown by not having any parking. So we did kind of look at this and what is around this site with the Civic Center and think there's a good balance. While the applicant could have built from lot line to lot line, or at least proposed that, did not, are handling both some of the back of house items, you know, your trash or where your utilities are. That's kind of one of the things we're seeing from a lot of projects. When they want to build lot line to lot line, they're not allowing for that. They are providing 7 parking spaces, and we'll kind of look at some of that. Elevations, just to kind of talk about, one of the new allowances within our zoning ordinance is a rooftop terrace. So this was a concept that would allow something to be done on top of a 3rd floor. We've seen a few proposed, but we did make an amendment there where that does not become a story. So, but it can also not be covered 100% to fill up that rooftop. So I think it's limited, or it's basically to 25% of that rooftop structure. So just flipping through some of the floor plans here, we have the 1st and 2nd floor, 3rd floor, and then the rooftop. As you noted in your packets, we don't have it on the screen here, there was a proposed basement. That is not allowed under our regulations. That is a story. Applicants agreed to that, so I think you'll see that reflected in our condition. And then, of course, the rooftop terrace, where that 25% gets him, everything shaded here is certainly within cover. We do allow for elevator shafts. That amendment for rooftop terraces allowed an extra 5 feet in height just for those elevator shafts and the equipment that goes with that. That is limited to 7.5% of the rooftop terrace, which they're completely within that. Everything else you see falls under the 40 feet height limit. So, but then what is on top of that 3rd floor is limited to 25%. It's a lot of moving parts, but there's a little question here, something that's not highlighted that shows an covered outdoor lounge would probably not fall within, because what's highlighted is kind of right at the 25% max. The specifics on that, this would also go to our planning commission and ultimately our city council for a site plan review. That's where we're going to get into very fine-tuned building plans and drainage and utility connections and those sort of things. So as you'll see reflected again in our recommendations, there are 2 conditions that will address those. Here's the proposed parking lot that sits behind the building. A lot of work being done in our right-of-way with the sidewalks. I'm not going to rehash the writing here. There is a net benefit of 5 additional parking spaces in the area. 2 will have to be removed on street for the ingress and egress. And you can kind of see there that everybody knows the parking lot out front, and there are some times a year where that's full. You know, if it's the Mardi Gras or something like that, we might need a shuttle. But I think that'll kind of work itself out from a practical matter. The getting downtown to park, you might not want to be there, because we block that parking lot off a few days ahead of time. So staff does recommend approval of Board of Adjustment case 22.09 with those 2 conditions. The proposed building is limited to 3 stories. Basement is not allowed without removing the upper story. And then the rooftop floor plan shall be revised to limit structures to 25%. Applicant is here. If y'all have any questions, I'm also here to answer those as well.
Why are they limiting rooftop floor plans to only 25%? I'm just curious.
So when we looked at this, you basically, in essence, you end up with a 4th floor. And we have a limit of 40 feet and 3 stories. So to allow a rooftop terrace that doesn't You know, and they're also, 25% is supposed to be located away from the public right-of-ways. So your street view still has a little bit more of a pedestrian scale, and you're not 4 stories right at the street. So that was the intent. So we allow this, but it kind of gets pushed back. Now, that's only on a 3-story building. If you do a 1 or 2-story building, there's no cap on a rooftop terrace. So as long as you're not pushing up to the already other limitations, we have made accommodations for those within the rooftop terrace amendment.
Was that kind of common in other planning areas about percentages on rooftop cars?
It's what the goals of the local areas are. New York has rooftop terraces 40 stories in the air. So I think one of the big things, and it's been pushed through the years, especially the last 5 years, the height limit was 35 feet. Then it went to 40 feet. Now we're allowing a little bit more for elevator shafts. But I do think the overwhelming sentiment is keeping it at about 3 stories right now. So with that goal in mind, yes, I think the 25% was, and kind of not being located in the front was important for that amendment.
How many parking spaces, you said that it's a net of 5, so how many, can you pull back up that?
Sure.
How many are around it right now, and what are they going to end up with total?
So they're adding 7 spaces on site, removing 2 of the on-street parking. I believe there was 7 left, so 9.
It may be like
total
14,
on-street
that 7 there's 7 directly in front of it would be 14
There
spaces.
was eight adjacent currently, so removing 2, that was 15, but removing 2 on the street and putting that on property. But we didn't even look at just what's adjacent, we kind of looked at what's around.
300
City
feet.
can certainly not reserve spaces for any business, but we know most days there's a surplus out. So that's why we were kind of
Sure.
willing.
I'm just asking questions.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That was what the analysis was. At the same time, we are having to revisit some parking requirements in the CBD. That's probably some of the goals that will be proposed in zoning changes. Most of those are going to affect more offices in the CBD, because we want to preserve the commercial aspect of things. There's retail stores and those sort of things, and we don't want to be just filled up with offices. That doesn't attract.
There is no overnight parking on the streets.
There's no enforcement there's no penalties for overnight parking unless we get, I think there's some, if somebody's legally lingering there for a couple of days, they draw attention. But I don't know of anybody going out every day. We don't have, I don't know if this terms are correct anymore, but the meter maids, we don't have that. So we don't have anybody monitoring parking. We don't have any time limits on any of our parking spaces. 2-hour parking or those type of things used by many cities. There's no meters on our parking
No,
spaces.
but overnight parking is allowed on the city streets?
Happens every night. The enforcement of that, it's not enforced. We don't have any. We have some language, I know, that you can't park like an RV in a city street and park, or food trucks or commercial vehicles, but I don't think there's any restrictions on parking overnight.
So that's subject to change with the city.
It must have changed.
And
Certainly.
and if it changes, what's the hotel to do?
Well, anything's subject to change.
Right.
There's what's subject to change and actually what's in conversation. And right now, that's not in anybody's conversation of changing that. It's requirements on new developments and what's required, or changing from a retail to an office. That's really what's on so theoretically, can that be changed? Yes. Is it on anybody's radar right now?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
This time, will the applicant, if you'll state your name for us?
Good evening. My name is Jay Watkins. My wife and I are the owners of Section Street Hospitality. We acquired this property about 18 months ago from Dr. Jones when he decided to move his practice. Since that time, we've been working with Hunter and his staff, been working with the mayor's office as well as the council, looking at opportunities to bring a hotel here to this site that would be workable. We've seen a number of other applications come for the city for hotel uses, and we believe that what we're proposing provides not only a good use for this particular piece of property, but we've designed it in a way to provide for parking on site that would alleviate some of the concerns that we've seen in some of these other applications. Now granted, we are not able to make an economically viable use of this property as a hotel and have 14 spaces. That would be basically a 6-room hotel with 12 parking spaces. We just can't make that go. But we think what we've proposed and brought before you today is a use that, taking into consideration all of the available parking close by, both on street and in the adjoining cross-street parking here at the Civic Center, does provide an opportunity for a hotel use like this one with limited impact on the existing parking here in town. We certainly want to be good neighbors. We also want to be a good business operator. And I can tell you, if you've got a hotel where your guests can't get in and park, that's going to be a problem. And so we certainly have been talking with the city, with the mayor, with the city council members about other alternatives along Bancroft, some other additional property down below the Art Museum, but also looking at the concept of having valet and taking advantage of the parking garage that's here already on site a few blocks away. So again, we don't anticipate making the investment here to have a hotel that our guests are going to be complaining about not being able to get in and out of, not being able to have available parking. So we feel like we've looked at the opportunity, looked at the options that are available, and feel like this is a viable plan, and would hope that the board would consider our application for use of this property as a small hotel. Happy to answer any questions. Our engineer, Mr. Jenwright's here as well, if you've got questions to that extent. But as Hunter indicated, this is just the first of 3 steps for us in terms of we need a use approval first, then we go through the MOP review at the Planning Commission level, and then finally would have a site plan review and approval at the City Council level. So keeping in mind that this is simply a request for use approval, we hope that you find this to be an acceptable opportunity for this hotel to be developed here.
Any questions for the applicant?
What do you anticipate happening on the roof? I mean, in terms of functions and things like that?
We would like to have that as a bar and event space. We spent some time the last month or so while our children were at camp. We went to New Orleans and reviewed a few of the smaller hotels that they've got there. Many of them have a food concept or a bar concept. I really don't want to be in the restaurant business. But the idea of having a rooftop terrace with a bar and event space, whether it's for wedding reception, rehearsal dinner, a fundraising event, something along those lines, we certainly would like it to be used for that. You know, the idea of having this hotel being taken down by the family of a bride, and all the bride's family and the bridesmaids are there, and they use the terrace for a luncheon or for a reception or something along those lines, I think is certainly what we would be looking for. As I said in our narrative, whether that bar feature is open to the general public or whether that bar feature is just for hotel guests, we've even considered a membership type club event for that rooftop space. What I don't want to see is it become a bar that's a full-time bar. This would be more of a Thursday to Sunday type operation. We have visited with our neighbors and talked to them about what our concept is and what the plan would be. You know, I don't want to have hotel guests complaining about loud music at 11 o'clock. And so, you know, keeping this as a membership option, having this for members, for residents or guests only, are certainly things we're talking about. We may have a full-service bar, but it would be limited in time and hours.
To supplement that, just add it into the rooftop terrace definition, And I want to read this real quick. An outdoor amenity area located on the roof of the building shall be accessory to the primary use of the building. Individually owned and operated businesses within use shall not occupy rooftop terrace. So having a privately owned bar that is not controlled by the hotel is not allowed.
We're not interested in leasing this to somebody else. We not only would not be allowed, but that's just, I would like to be in control of whatever's going on up there.
Are you going to be the operator of the hotel?
I'm a lawyer by trade. I've
know
been
you
to
are.
some
That's
really
why I
nice
asked that
hotels,
question.
and I've enjoyed some really nice spaces. Yeah, I might be the guy that's mixing drinks, or I may be the guy working behind the reception desk every now and then. But no, sir, I don't intend to be the one running this day to day. One of the things I learned on some of our diligence is there's some really good companies out there that focus on this sector, the 20 and under rooms. My brother-in-law runs a small hotel in the Gulch area of Nashville, and I've learned from him that, you know, his wife likes to pick out the sheets and the amenities and have what's in the gift shop, but they don't want to run it day to day. I'm certainly going to be looking for somebody that does this on a regular basis, really knows what they're doing, and runs this well.
Will you have any commercial space on the first floor besides the hotel?
No, ma'am. I mean, unless you consider like a hotel-themed gift shop with T-shirts and towels, that kind of stuff. But no, ma'am, we won't be leasing any space to anyone outside the hotel operation itself.
And, I don't know if this is appropriate, but the economic impact on this is bringing residents in to stay in Fairhope to shop and eat and enjoy the city, which is clean business. And plus, so it's a nice, in my opinion, it's a nice attribute for the city of Fairhope.
And as I said, our goal is not to have an on-site restaurant. And we're going to have a space where you can get a small bite of breakfast or get a cocktail in the evening, but our goal would be to push folks back out into the community. We've got great restaurants here in Fairhope. Certainly don't want to be competing with the friends that we've got here that are already doing that and doing it really well. And so, to your point, I think we would be bringing people into the center of town and giving them opportunities to visit what's already available.
How much
Is the main entrance on Oak or on Section?
We're going to have entrance on Oak and on Section,
Right.
with parking in the rear. And so as you'll, the site plan, they'll have entryways from all three locations.
Okay.
Let's see, back.
So will there be loading and unloading spaces available
At the
then?
rear of the building, yes, ma'am.
At the rear,
Yep.
where the parking is?
Right.
Right. Photo on the right there is from the rear of the photo.
The way it's designed currently is that there's loading space right there at the back door of the building, and space for people to still be able to pull out and get into the parking spot or pull out and leave the parking spot.
How much is this project going to cost?
I could tell you the pre-inflation numbers, but I can't tell you where they are today. I would imagine it's probably a $3 to $4 million capital improvement project.
You may be bartending. All right. Thank you. All right.
I think I appreciate what you said about the valet. I think that's a great idea, concept. I think that's something the other hotel concepts that came before didn't really present those ideas. I don't know if there's overflow from the parking deck already. I think there is on the upper deck. They've been trying to get people to use it. So, I mean, I think that kind of solves a lot of the questions that public opinion will have, in my mind, especially if the city creates that partnership before you have your site plan review with the city council, whenever that is.
And I think that's going to be key is when we do something like that, having a place to take those cars is important.
Yeah.
And Mayor Sullivan and Mr. Burrell have been very cooperative in trying to look at this from the perspective of, is there a way to recreate some actual spaces already on the street? Is there space? I have not explored with the Art Museum what potential there may be to lease space there.
I think you're gonna have, they're gonna have they have need of parking.
Yep.
I think that's gonna be one of the.
Well, we met with some of their board members and their director probably 8 months ago, 10 months ago, when we
Mhm.
first started walking through this, and they made it very clear that, they've got their own issues there as well.
Yeah.
And so, there's, I think, a lot of opportunity around this north side of town that could provide some answers to that. But at this point, I can tell you, we'll do what it takes to keep our guests happy. Finding where to valet, I have to valet them down at my house at Point Clear, we may end up doing that, but we certainly want people to be happy and be able to get in and out.
Thanks.
And I will mention, I think one of the most important things that any of our businesses can do is employees that come and park for 8 hours at a time do not need to be parking. They're the ones that need to be in the parking deck. That is the whole goal vital downtown. You can't park every employee right in front of the door.
No.
And I think there's some of the critiques there that employees have to walk. I get it, but pretty much every business is going to within a quarter mile of one of the larger parking lots.
I think it's a beautiful project.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to open the public portion of the meeting. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against it? And Hunter, have we received any letters for or against the project?
Just a lot of news crews.
Okay. We will close the public portion if there's no one out there. And board members, do we have a motion or any questions?
No.
I would vote for approval with the following conditions that are listed, limited to 3 stories, and also the rooftop floor plan be revised to limit structures to 25%. Basement is not allowed without removing an upper floor.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Our next order of business is, we've got 3 items that we had voted on previously. They have an expiration time of 1 year to be recorded. That time has gone by, so we are revisiting those 3 requests.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, and, we did talk about this last month. These are public hearings, so they will otherwise appear just like any other case, except for I'm going to move through the original presentations a little faster. If there's any questions, we can certainly back up and look through those. So the first one was at 900 Creek Drive, and that was a variance to front setback. The project, if you recall, was originally 3 lots. It was a request for a 24-foot front setback variance. And y'all forgive me, we kind of just brought the old slides in, so it's been a few months since we've really looked at this. The last slide is what we're going to look at. But just to refresh your memory, there were 3 smaller lots combined into one. And this is at the end of a cul-de-sac. The right-of-way is very deep there. Originally, the lots here in this subdivision were, there was a lot of waterfront lots, and the bigger lots had little small pieces. There was no restrictions on the use of those pieces. So it's now you have 3 lots. There was a lot of moving pieces to this with easements adjacent to the yacht club next door. We went through a lot of options. Some of the land is not there. What was originally there in the, actually it's part of Fly Creek now. So, where we landed, and I'm going to go to the last motion. The motion was made and seconded to approve the front yard variance to allow a 20-foot front yard setback subject to 7 different conditions. Lots 1, 2, and 3 shall be replatted as one lot. The location of the underground utility shall be shown on the recorded plat. Approximately 35 feet underground, there was electrical lines that went under Fly Creek, where they replaced those. They've worked with, the applicants worked with our electric department and got that kind of created. A 5-foot drainage easement shall be included on the above-mentioned recorded plat along the southern boundary. A recorded 10-foot easement granted to the applicant and lying south of the 5-foot drainage easement shall be recorded. Final language shall be approved by staff prior to filing with the judge of probate. Number 5 was coordination with the City of Fairhope Utilities Department prior to the issue of building permits. Placement of a note on the subdivision plat stating that a dwelling will be constructed on existing underground utilities. Any future structure must comply with those regulations. And then finally, the existing structure and utilities located on Lot 3 will be removed prior to issuance of a building permit for new construction. These are the motions as they were adopted by the Board of Justice. Some of those have been clarified already, but we're putting in front of you just the same way it was, as we would be coming in and asking for an extension instead of a new approval. So if y'all have any questions on this one, this was advertised and will require a public hearing. So I'm here if you need anything, and I can move to the second one after we work through this one.
Okay. Is the applicant here with us? Okay, you'll come up and state your name for us.
Yeah, my name is J.J. McCool. And mine has been, it was recorded just the next day. You said, but I recorded the next day once I got the variance. And we started working with the engineer, so it was recorded.
Okay, so,
Two things without getting a variance. When you get a variance, you've got two things you got to accomplish. You got to report it, and then you got to act upon it within a year.
okay.
So we've looked at, JJ's been working through architectural plans and other stuff, and y'all know what's going on in the world, supply chain issues, COVID, we've had a lot of things happen.
So you did record it, you just
We did.
didn't start construction?
Well, we re-recorded it, and then we attempted to kind of to start, and just with COVID, everything kept getting pushed back. And then we wound up during that time, we started working with an architect instead, and we changed up our plans. We've got our drawings done, the engineers have them right now. The engineer is still working through the stuff, but we've got all our floor plans done, the concept drawings done. All we're waiting now is for the engineer to get back with us with a foundation, so I can turn that in for our foundation plan. All that's been done, the geotechnical report's been finished. All of our subs are in place as well. So all I'm waiting on now is just to get the stuff back from the engineer, and we can get going.
And they were submitted for a permit, we looked at the first draft was too high of a building.
Yeah, we were too high.
They go back to the drawing board,
Okay.
so.
All right.
Has any of the 1 through 7 been completed? Has the lots been re-subdivided into one plat, or?
Everything on that list everything on there has been done except for us starting. It was literally within 30 days. Once I got the variance, I acted on it immediately. Mm-hmm. And the only thing we haven't done, and much to my chagrin, is start digging. I mean, that's it. That's all we haven't done. But everything else we took care of immediately. I thought we'd be built by now, but we kind of, once the architect designed it, and we had explained, I thought it was too high, and it was. And we went to Hunter, and he proved my point. So we then went back to the drawing board, and we changed that. And so literally, I'm ready right at any time. As the engineer gives us the drawings back, I'm going to see the building department.
All right. All right. Is anybody from the public, thank you, Jay. Is anybody from the public like to speak for or against it? Okay, and there's been no new comments on it, okay? But no new comments, okay.
So I just, my only question is, since things have been acted on that list, do we amend that list at all, or do we just approve it as it was originally done a year ago?
I would approve, there's no harm there, and I would like to, I do not doubt that some of it's beyond our scope, like with electrical and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do the building permit, that's when we typically run through this list. So if we can leave those on there just as the conditions, We'll make sure those are done. Now, I can vouch that some of those that are in our control have been done.
Okay.
If we can just leave that list, it's a checklist for us when we do it.
Okay. So nobody for the public, we'll close the public portion. And board members, do I have a motion or any discussion?
I move we approve it per the 7 conditions previously stated.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, we'll take a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Our second is BOA 21.02. It's for 301 Magnolia Avenue.
Thank you. So this is on the corner of Magnolia, northeast corner of Magnolia and Church. The project had, this one came to you one time for a variance. It expired, kind of changed the bit of the plan a little bit and came to you again. Also went through site plan review, MOP, wait to the tree commission. I think we went through round and round for this, but the variance request, what I'll mention, was parking facing a street. In the CBD, parking's supposed to be screened. So there was 3 units facing Church Street that the garage door faced Church Street. So that was one of the variants. And then there was a sidewalk variance in a small section, which I believe we can show you here. So there was the 2 garages that the door faced Church Street, but it's adjacent to the sidewalk, and that variance was granted. And then we also had, there was a section here that was going to be very tough to get an ADA sidewalk in. So there was I believe it was a 3-foot area that did not require the sidewalk. Does that sound right? Very, very small portion that did not meet the requirements. So ultimately on the variance, let's see, that was our recommendation. Now, some of those work themselves out through like the tree ordinance. Make sure we're on there. Yep, that's it. So this was the motion that was made and adopted. It was that did allow the parking requirements within the CBD, the variance, and the sidewalk width requirements, subject to all sidewalks shall be ADA compliant, and where we rely on a 6-foot minimum normally, we allowed in that small area a 4-foot minimum in width. The subject shall be limited to the 2 garages that address Church Street, and then installation of sidewalks, driveways, utilities within the city right-of-way shall require a right-of-way permit. Trimming and removal of trees in the right-of-way shall be approved by the City of Fairhope Public Works Department. So with that third one, there's already been a lot of review on what the trees would be and all that, but it would still, when it's ultimately done, that requires the right-of-way permit. So there's no harm in leaving that condition in there as well. We do recommend to move this forward as it was presented.
And what happened in this situation why it didn't go within the year? Was it recorded?
Vance is
Yes.
here,
Okay.
so I'll let him speak to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Vance McCowan.
Yeah.
Yes, it was recorded. The 365 is why we're here. The 365 days expired
Okay.
before acting on it.
But it was recorded. Okay. All right. Any questions for Vance?
So you're ready to proceed, is that right? Or?
We just want to know that we can. If it expires again, we probably won't, but I just don't want to lose what we've already put together with we've already gotten the extension from the city council for their site plan approval. And so this is just one other extension that we need. If it works, we'll go. If not, it'll be for naught.
Can I ask a question about that? How long does the city council site plan?
6 months.
Does this need to match that, or does it,
No.
how does that work?
No, the city, go ahead.
The site plan, caught that before it actually expires, so that was just an extension. So this does not need to match that, but they are all kind of tied together. So typically, the city council may, I can't speak for them, may grant 2 extensions equally a year. That's been done in the past. I would say it would be done, and kind of got chewed out for all these extensions. Personally, got chewed out. But no, I don't think you need to try to match that. Our approval for this would be, you don't need to approve that. If you so can.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
But this, I mean, I guess this couldn't be acted upon unless the city council acted upon theirs. Let's say it wouldn't be on 6 months, it was 8 months from now. It doesn't matter.
Yes, city council's already granted the extension.
Right.
That happened about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm just, I guess I'm a little confused
Yeah,
with
it's kind
chicken
of
and egg.
which one comes first?
Right.
So we couldn't get site plan approved, so we had this, so, you know.
I understand enough to be dangerous, but.
And that's one of those things we may need to look at, because in a complex project, it's typically, you're gonna be the first one to see it, because a lot of times it's about the use, or it's about the variance when we move forward. So it's a year, when it takes 6 months to get through planning commission and city council after that, that's something to consider.
So we can make a motion that says we extend it for 2 years? No.
No, I think if we're gonna consider that, we need to talk about amendments to the regulations. that
Okay.
allow
Mhm.
regulations. I don't think you have that authority to do that.
To extend it after
You
the,
can extend it if you come in as old you did before it expires, but just say we're gonna do it 2 years only.
okay, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'll open this now to the public portion. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against it? And did we have any comments from when we advertised it again? No. Okay, we'll close the public portion. And board members, do I hear a motion or any questions?
I make a motion to approve it with the 3 conditions that we had before.
I second it.
All in favor? Roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, the last on this list was a front and rear setback variance for 325 Pecan Ridge Boulevard. That was Lot 5. Just to kind of give you a little background on this one, it was a wedge-shaped lot. Uniquely on this project, in this subdivision, for some reason, these 2 lots were given 45-foot front setbacks instead of 35. So the applicant came in after receiving 1 variance and came in and basically was asking for additional 2 feet. So they had a front and rear setback, and then came in and asked for 2 more feet in the rear. It is an odd-shaped lot. We kind of had that discussion. And then how far do you go when you're giving a variance? So what we looked at there, the 35 matches what most of the homes were in that area. I kind of just jumped to there's the original plat that requires a 45-foot setback. Cumulatively, what we were looking at in those variances is let's see, do we put it, oh, nope. So I've got to think about this because the notes you put were very accurate, but I got to do the math. So it would be a 12-foot variance 10-foot variance to the front property, 7 foot to the rear. So we've kind of got 2 now that have expired, and it's.
Can we combine them?
Yes, we did that with the first one, but now we kind of rolled one up in 2021.
Right.
And so now, if we're going to do this, thinking it's the variance request that I would recommend approval if we so choose to do that would be a 10-foot front property setback and a 7-foot rear.
Okay.
And if the motion is made that way, we did not have any. Let's see. no conditions on this one. Just a tidbit, the people that was purchasing the property wanting the variance are no longer involved with the property owner that created these setbacks in this shaped lot, would like to keep the variance going, so he's paid the application. And yeah, he was actually the original applicant as well. But there is we saw some house plans presented to us before. Those are no longer just a request to keep the variance to try to market that lot.
Okay. All right. Is the applicant here?
I don't know.
Okay. No. So is there anybody from the, we'll open the public portion of the meeting. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against it? And when we re-advertised it, no comments from the public. Okay.
Hunter, do you think they're going to actually build on this? If they've had 4 years already?
I'm ready to let it expire if it doesn't happen in a year. It's going to be tough, I think, if somebody sells it and then trying to get plans. And with the supply things, I think it'll be tough. But as I told you last month, we gave kind of everybody the same that was in that window last 2.5 years with the COVID and virtual and all of those things. We gave them all a call and said, and I think we wound up with 4. I think there was only 4. And 3 of the 4 said, yes, we'd like to extend that, or not extend it, but come back, pay the application fee again, re-advertise.
So one person said no, they didn't want.
That's correct, and it was actually on Creek Drive, if you remember the variance we granted there on the little.
Right. So if they decide, they can come back to us.
They can come back.
Right.
Yes, sir. We actually have someone next month that expired, after last month's meeting, we had this come in, and it expired about 3.5 years ago. So they kind of, in our scope of what we looked at that was impacted by those meetings and virtual meetings, they weren't in it. So they'll be back in front of us next month for extension.
So if we don't extend this, because there's sounds like there's no movement on it, basically, sell it, that new person would have to come back and then.
They fall back to the base, the 45-foot is platted. I believe that was 35. Don't quote me on, I can't remember what the base zoning was, but whatever the standard zoning is, yes, sir. And it's similar to an extension, but again, when they let it expire without coming back to us, this is a new case. It's technically a new case and not an extension. So, but if you turned it down instead of not granting an extension, then it would go back to the setbacks as platted or zoned.
All right, we'll close the public portion. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
With the
With the
7 foot in the rear and the 5 foot or 10 foot in the front.
Okay. Okay, and do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Nay.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries 4-1. Okay, our last order of business is, do we have anything we have another, something on the agenda for next month?
So we have at least 2, 3.
3.
Yes, sir.
Busy.
Okay, is there anything old or new business that we need to discuss? Oh, and one question I had, so applicants that want to take Ryan's spot as alternates, they fill out an application,
Just turn those into the city clerk.
and they can get that online with the city of
Yes.
Fairhope.
And I believe that is under the city clerk's website. You're probably the last one that filled it out. I think it's under her section of the website.
Is there a timeline or deadline for them to do that?
Those are open 24/7, 365.
Okay.
We've already had applicants that have been submitting since we filled positions. So there's quite a few applicants out there already.
Okay, good. All right. Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, thank you.
What is